Episode 4 of the Dr. Tottenham podcast. I'm at Ztronch. We are at Dr. Tottenham. Tim is at TIMMAH621. Vass is at VCOM1. Our man Dan is back. He's at Yidvids. Danny, it's great to see you, bud.
Yeah, and you boys.
We have some news to share about you in a little bit. We'll get to that. Look, you can find us on Instagram. We are at Dr. Tottenham. You can find us on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Listen to us on iTunes, Spotify. The pod can be found just about anywhere you can find a podcast. All we ask is that you continue to listen and leave us a review. We really value your reviews. We take them to heart. We read them. We listen to them. We talk about them. And the goal is that they make us better. So we thank you for your reviews, and we ask you to keep them coming, and then subscribe to us on YouTube. We've got a football match to review of sorts, preseason, albeit against Ipswich. Coy's Twitter's all out of sorts. Vass, I have to ask you, is this COVID or is this Coy's? Why everybody's in such a pissed off mood?
Oh, something's affecting us somehow, isn't it? I think it's the same every pre-season. People say that they won't get too excited by what happens at pre-season, but then there's a whole series of takes coming out of a match that's sort of kind of meaningless, really. But yeah, at least it was a game of football, and it gives us something to talk about.
Well, let's talk about it. All right, so Tim, let's start off with the lineup, as we tend to do on the pod. There was no Tanganga in the squad at all, right?
Yeah, he wasn't in there, and that's what I'm kind of wondering on, whether it's still his injury, if there's an issue from that and not wanting to risk him in these early fixtures, because the club puts out their pictures of training midweek, and he's been pictured there. So we know he's with the club. We know he's training. I'm thinking it's just something with injury, and maybe we just don't want to risk anything given our situation if we are looking at him as a right back or whatever. So that's my thoughts on it. But overall lineup, it's kind of surprising the strength of it, of the starting 11 that Jose put out. It was kind of, let's go full strength at the beginning, and with what we have, the players available to us, those who aren't quarantining after their vacations, and then we'll put in the kids later in the second half. So that surprised me, but it was good to actually see that. And I wasn't planning on watching the match. I wasn't going to pay for the subscription for Bleacher Report to watch it, but I saw that lineup. I thought, okay, just take my fucking money. Let's watch this. I don't have anything else to do.
I was shocked. Like, I still have a subscription, and I don't know how I do. I figured it ended last season, and I got an email saying Spurs on PR Live.
Well, what that means is you have a monthly review or it's renewing monthly, and you just haven't canceled it. So you're just paying $10 every month, and you don't even know.
He's not even feeding it.
I'm dying to ask really all three of you what your takeaways were of the match. Before we get into that, because you talked about that we put together a lineup as strong as we could given quarantine issues. So Dan, I'll turn this over to you. Earlier this week, and I'm not sure where these players were, but I think Dyer was involved, I think Coco was involved, maybe somebody else, and they were maybe playing keepy-uppy or having a pickup game with somebody, with a player.
A few other players.
Was tested for COVID. So what's the backstory, and what does that mean for our players, and what does that mean from a quarantine perspective?
So basically, if you come back from certain countries now, the government have changed the rules that you need to quarantine in the UK for 2 weeks. It depends where you were. So Spain is on the list. I think France wasn't on the list, but changed last week. Croatia, a few other countries have been added. A few of the players came back from places that changed. I presume, I don't know, but I presume whilst they're out there, I think they were told not to go to somewhere where they would have to quarantine when they come back. But if the advice changed, I think they were sort of stuck. I think Dyer, a lot of the Spanish-speaking players were with a player played in Italy, I can't remember his name, who tested positive. So that means they have been in close contact with someone who tested positive and need to self-isolate for 14 days or something. I mean, I don't know the complete details, but I think that's what was going on.
So what does that mean for these? So how many players do you think are caught up in this?
I think it's about 6 or 7, I think.
Wow,
it's about 6 or 7 of them, I think so, yeah. And Kane as well. Kane was it Barbados? I think he was somewhere in the Caribbean.
Kane was in the Bahamas. And,
yeah, that's right.
The Bahamas fell into that quarantine category while he was away.
That's right.
So he's got to spend the 2 weeks. Dyer, Lamella, Sanchez, and Lo Celso were all holidaying together. There was Instagram pics. I can't remember where they were. Might have been Italy somewhere. Maybe Sardinia or something like that. I'm not sure. And as Dan rightly said, they were having a kickabout with was it a Napoli player, perhaps? And
So
the guy.
So if they're asymptomatic, right, and let's just
Yeah.
say, assuming that they've all been tested, and I would expect that hasn't been, for privacy reasons, that those results haven't been published. But let's assume that all of those players are COVID free. So does this mean that they get to could they conceivably train on their own? Could they do something? What does this mean for their likelihood of being there on opening day?
Well, the problem with being tested is it doesn't actually matter. The test doesn't matter when you come back into the UK. At the moment, the law is that you need to quarantine for 14 days, even if you have negative tests, because of how, I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but it happened to a couple of players in Scotland. Was that right, Vass? And some of the Rangers players, or was it the Celtic players, came back, didn't quarantine, and their matches actually got called off because of 2 or 3 positive tests. I think it was Celtic and Aberdeen. Someone, I'm bad with details.
Okay.
So yeah, the idea is that it doesn't matter what they did, they're going to have to stay in quarantine for 14 days, even if they test negative for the next 3 days and get all their private tests.
Right, so
but I think
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it'll mean they're fine for the start of the season, I think.
Oh, they are, okay.
Yeah, it's no problem for that.
Okay.
Sam,
right. Yes.
why don't you have a go at Harry Kane, because Delhi was available playing, and you got all fucking in a twist last week about him being off in Mykonos, and he's out there playing. So give us your little rant against Harry Kane. Come on, don't be biased here.
Look, hang on. Harry got.
Sam hates Delhi.
I have no problem with any players taking vacation. Okay, they deserve it. They work hard. I just think that Delhi's was just more of a production as opposed to a genuine effort to get in shape, become better, help himself become the player that I think he is, and I like to think that we all think that he is. Harry's deal was just circumstances, right? So he was there, it was cleared, everything was kosher, but while he was gone, all of a sudden Bahama's status changed, and now he's got to be quarantined.
The one thing I will add to that, though, is that I think they had maybe a day and a half's notice to get back if they could and not quarantine, and I don't think he made it. So I don't know whether that's his bad or what, but I can't imagine if he could have got back and didn't, the club would be too happy about it.
I blame the club. I'm not going to blame Harry. The club should have called him. All right, so let's talk about tactics. Sam, I'll start with you. What is there to take away 3-0 Ipswich yesterday?
I think the things to take away are not necessarily players coming in having a good performance against Ipswich in a match that doesn't really matter, but look at what we're trying to do tactically, and that'll kind of give you an idea of some things that Jose is working on. And what I saw tactically is a high press, not sitting back, and that may signal what we might do, not necessarily in the Premier League matches, but in these early qualifying matches for Europa League, in the Carabao Cup, against teams that are, they are of a lower quality. And I don't think you need to skirt around that, but you need to take it seriously, and you need to have a different game plan for them. So maybe the game plan for these teams that don't have as much quality as you're going to go up against in the Premier League is to play a high press. And we saw that throughout almost the entirety of the match, players playing with a lot of tempo, pressing high, not sitting back. So maybe that's a tactic we're going to see in these early matches. And that's kind of one of the things that I pull away from these preseason fixtures, is what we're looking at doing that's different than what we've seen previously.
Yeah, but understood. I mean, so you think that maybe, because our fixtures right at the beginning, they come fast and furious. So especially against somebody maybe this lower quality, do you see us maybe doing more experimenting, that maybe what we'll be able to do, later on in the season, particularly the Premier League?
I mean, maybe that, or it's just that tactic sitting back, that's reserved for teams with more quality, to let them come onto you and open themselves up. Maybe that's not going to get us anywhere against, a really lower tier European side or a third tier team in the Carabao Cup. Maybe you need to take it to them. And maybe that's what we saw in this match, is that's the type of opposition you're going to be up against in these qualifying matches. So I don't think it's necessarily we're trying to experiment against them. I think you just need a different game plan against them.
Well, there were a couple players that I thought was very interesting that they got a start yesterday, and I'll start with Gedson. And not only did he start, but he starts at right back. And we have a question from Trey Terry. He's at Trey Terry. Vass, are we winning the league now with Gedson at right back? What'd you think of that yesterday? And what'd you make of his performance?
Do you know what? I didn't really watch all the game. I flicked it on, and I think we were already 2-0 up. I saw Gedson on the right-hand side. I thought he was playing sort of right side midfield because he was that far up the pitch. And I saw that Foyth was kind of in that right defensive area. So I thought that Foyth was playing right back. So maybe Tim will correct me in a bit. Listen, the glimpses that I saw, I thought Gedson had a good game. I know it's only Ipswich and it's a pre-season friendly, but I saw Gedson being somewhat dynamic, positive, doing stuff that so far we hadn't really seen him do in the Premier League. So that's a positive sign. We'll see how it goes over the next few pre-season matches and see whether he can take that into the season, because the club's got a big decision to make on Gedson. If it's a 2-year, well, he's got 1 year left on the loan, and we're going to have to decide what we're going to do with him.
Well, let me expand upon something you said. What was some of the things that you saw him doing yesterday that you hadn't seen him do thus far in his career at Spurs?
Right. Okay. So, I mean,
Playing.
I saw him. Pardon?
Smart ass counselor.
What did you say?
I'm putting you in the corner. Go on, Vass.
I saw his pace. I hadn't really seen that so far. I saw him front up an opposing player one-on-one and take him on and beat him. I saw him get some decent crosses in. So, yeah, it was something positive that I hadn't seen from Gedson before. But I'm going to caveat it the fact that it was Ipswich and it was pre-season.
Well, there's a good people that are sort of having a chance to sort of take the piss here. Stuart B at Espero75 because I've put Tim in the penalty box. I have to ask this to you, Dan. Is Gedson the next Dani Alves?
I reckon more Roberto Carlos.
What is that? But no, seriously, like, what does that say? Does it say a lot about Gedson that he's multifaceted enough to play so many different positions, or does this speak to our desperate situation that we're in at right back?
Yeah, we didn't have a right back, so I presume it was just short straws in the dressing room, I expect. I like Gedson, but I can't see him playing many games at right back this season. I don't know if you can or not, but it doesn't strike me as the sort of place that I think he's going to settle down against Manchester United or Man City or Liverpool.
Timmy, do you think that he could settle in at right back for Spurs?
Do I think that he could what?
Do you think he could settle in at right back? Do you think that could be a natural position for him?
I don't think a pure right back in a back four could be a natural position for him. I think if we play a back three and it's a right wing back, sure, I think he can fill in on that. And that's what I thought we were playing yesterday. I see a lot of people saying it was a back four and we transitioned to a back three when we're in attack. But let's be real, we were in attack pretty much the entire game against Ipswich. So I thought it was a back three with wing backs of Sessegnon and Gedson. And I think that could be a position that he could play. He did have some defensive contributions. He had, one around the 70th minute, somewhere around there, a sliding tackle in the box that cut out a chance. And look, I don't think he's any worse, I guess, defensively than what we've had this past season at right back. I'll put it that way. I don't want to talk bad. I've said I'm not going to talk bad about that player anymore, so I'm trying to skirt that. But I don't think it's a step back in a defensive contribution with Gedson in that position. But I think ultimately with him, you can see there's a talent there. You really can. He's extremely raw, extremely, extremely raw. And his rawness is even shown against Ipswich. It's going to show more against these upcoming preseason fixtures where the teams are getting better in quality and then in the Premier League. So I don't know if he's there yet, but you can definitely see that there's a player there. And with the right coaching, given an opportunity, he could flourish. I'm not ready to say that he's the next Dani Alves with Gedson at right back, but I will say there is some promise there.
Yeah, he's an intriguing player, right? I thought yesterday he's skillful and he's athletic, right? But it's strange. It's almost like his football brain isn't developed. And the player that I thought of yesterday as I was watching him, it's a bit Andros Townsend-like, right? A player that can make a difference, has got some talents, but doesn't really seem to really make a mark on things at times. And so, who knows? Maybe just some consistent coaching. But we don't have a lot of time with him, right? I mean, we've either got to get it right with him this year, or we're going to be shipping him back to Portugal. All right, we'll move on. Let's talk about another wingback. Let's talk about this fellow Cirkin. Vass, do you know? Before I kind of get into some list of questions about him, what's the story on him? Do we know much about him, his background, age, academy background, etc.?
No, I know he's very young and he's been in the academy for a while. But other than that, I don't know too much about him. I know Mourinho was talking him up even last season, and he kind of intimated that this young man will probably be working with the first team this season. But other than that, I've never really seen him play, but heard good things, obviously.
Well, I thought yesterday he showed quite well. We had a question from Anthony Miranda. He is at AJ Mira 713. Why is no one talking about a need for a new left back? Jose doesn't rate Cess. We'll talk about this. And Davis gets blown by any pacey winger he puts up against. Am I missing something? Tim, your thoughts on left back position? I guess it wasn't my plan to talk about Cess here, but I suppose we should. We'll talk about his performance as well. But your thoughts here at left back and Cirkin and how he fits in with the alternatives that we have right now.
Tim.
All right.
Well, I think Cirkin. No, I'm jumping in. Give me a second. I didn't hear you directed to me. I heard you just ask a question. I don't know who you're
Timmy too slow.
Timmy's sleeping on the job.
I think Cirkin's what he's missing. I think Cirkin is what Anthony was missing in that, because Jose's talked him up, and we're in a situation where we're just not going to be able to sign players to address every single need that we have. We have to prioritize. I think right back is more of a priority than left back at the moment. I think Cirkin can come in and be a backup left back. I think Davies is a serviceable starter to get you by for another year. So I don't think it's that big of an issue that we have to go out and sign a left back like it was that we needed a central defensive midfielder, like it is that we need a right back, like it is that we need a backup striker to Harry Kane. I think we need to address those positions more than left back. Talked about last week on the pod. Fullbacks are going to be the hardest position, I personally think, in the transfer market to get somebody good in. So if the opportunity is not there to get a quality player, and we have Davies and Cirkin to get us through, then let's readdress it next season. But I thought Cirkin showed a lot in this match, and I know a lot of people are talking about his offensive contributions, but I saw lots of good tackles defensively and contributions defensively from him, and I want to see what he offers moving forward this next season. I would rather like to see minutes given to him. So I'm tempering it with it was Ipswich, but given what Jose's talked about him even prior to these preseason matches, I'm really interested to see what Cirkin has this season, and I want to see him get those minutes rather than forcing a move for somebody right now.
Might be interesting with him, right? I mean, there's a place for him to play a role here in some of these upcoming games, particularly Europe, Carabao Cup. I'll just say this before we move on to Sessegnon. To me, he didn't look out of place yesterday, given the opposition and given what he was asked to do. And I agree with you that I thought there were a couple of sort of flurries of play where he really looked he looked quality. One particular moment that I remember, he was in very, very tight space with a number of players around him, and he looked cool as a cucumber and played the ball out nicely. Dan, I want to ask you about Sessegnon, because I mean, obviously fits in the frame here. Maybe we got a question from Eddie at Eddie Gomez 83. Very shocked to see that many don't rate Sessegnon. He thinks that he put effort and did well yesterday. What was your thoughts on his play yesterday?
I think he's a good player, Sessegnon. I rate him, but the only problem is that he's proved at that level, Ipswich and above the championship level, that he's a superstar, potential superstar in the making, and he is young. His problem is the step up that he's made last season and that he needs to make this season is where he's going to be judged. And I'll be honest, I'm talking about last season as much as anything else. He didn't look like he quite was ready for that extra step up. But you forget how young he is. What is he, 20 years old? I mean, if that, I think. So I think he's the reason, by the way, going back to the other question, that left back isn't a priority position, because we spent 30 million on one potential left back last year that I don't think Daniel Levy is ready to give up on just yet, no matter what Mourinho may think of him or may not think of him.
Yeah, I think the Sessegnon last season, he almost looked like he was in awe of his surroundings. There was some kind of this kind of starstruck almost being at Spurs, and okay, that may not be what happened, but that's what it felt like to me. That he maybe it was a confidence thing. Maybe he felt like, am I really good enough to be here? Well, he has to be, because the club spent the money on him and believed that he is good enough to play there. So if he can get his confidence going, and we've seen how much of a positive contribution he made for Fulham when he was there. I know Fulham had a poor season in the Premier League in the one season when he did play, but that was a team thing. But I think he just needs to get his confidence.
Oh, now audio issues on the Dr. Tottenham pod. All right. Well, Vass is frozen for now. We'll wait till he gets unfrozen. I'll ask you, Tim. I mean, you think there's a player there? You think? I'll ask you a blunt question. Do you think that Ryan Sessegnon will ultimately have an influential career at Spurs? I know it's awfully early to be asking a question like that, especially given, off his first year. But I'd love to get your thoughts.
I think Sessegnon could have an influence. I just don't think it's at left back. I don't think Jose has been clear that he doesn't see him as a left back. So I think we need to stop looking at it as Sessegnon's going to play left back. We have a lot of fixtures coming out. 8 within. No, he didn't. He did not play there yesterday.
Oh, was he more of a
Sessegnon did not play as a left back yesterday.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
he was upfield almost the entire match. Davies was over there more, and that's why I think we played a back 3. But if you're going to say that we played a back 4, then Davies was in at left back. Sessegnon was not lined up at left back during that match, and I don't think he's going to be.
All right. Young Jack Clark played yesterday. Was that a surprise, Dan?
Yes. I presume he's going back on loan somewhere, though, so I'm not really taking much into his performance or how he's getting on. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
There wasn't much to really sort of talk about positively there. Am I out of line for thinking that?
No, I don't think so. I still don't understand the Jack Clark transfer last year. I don't know what that was all about. Let's not go into it now, but I think he's going to go on loan somewhere in the Championship, and if he does well, we maybe give him a chance, but I don't really see him ever doing a lot for Tottenham, I'm afraid.
Yeah, he didn't. He did not. We talked about Cirkin sort of looking the part and looking very comfortable. I wouldn't describe Jack Clark's performance in that same vein. But we did see 1/4 yesterday, and I still don't know what to make. We got a question from Dustin at Debo 1980. What was your take on Foyth? The through ball for Sonny's second was unreal. Was this match a chance to show Mourinho or was it window shopping? Vass, I think you've made some constructive thoughts about comments about Warren Foyth. What do you think yesterday?
I think he was fine yesterday. He did make a great pass for Sonny's second goal. I don't know what to make of him being yanked off at half time, though. If anything, I'd have thought that Jose might have left him on a bit longer just to see some more of him. But maybe he thinks, he's fine and he had to bring some of the kids on. I don't really know what to make of that substitution, to be fair. But I think as I've said many times before, I think we need to persevere with him a little bit more and see if he can carve out a role for himself at the club.
Yeah, I would agree. Tim, your thoughts on Foyth yesterday?
Well, I think the reason you see him getting yanked is the same reason he got yanked against that team that shall not be named, the one that I can't pronounce their name. He got yanked at halftime because he created an individual error. He did that this game against Ipswich. He literally passed the ball to an Ipswich player in our own third. That's the problem with Foyth's game.
He didn't do that at all, right? Wasn't under any pressure.
Do what?
It was like
no, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
under absolutely no pressure, and that's the problem with Foyth as a center back or even a right back. Anywhere on that back line is if you make those individual errors, you're not going to get punished against a team like Ipswich, but in the Premier League, in a Europa League group stage or later knockout rounds, you're going to get punished. And Vass, I know you want to defend him on this, but let me finish saying that you got to get that out of your game. And I think there's a very good player there in Foyth. He did very well on one-on-one defending. He hardly got beat. But when you're under no pressure at all and you just give away the ball in our own third, you got to cut that out. And maybe more game time is what he needs to get that confidence to get rid of those little mistakes, because if that's just constantly in his mind and every time he goes out there and he makes a mistake, he gets yanked, he's going to be thinking about that. And so he's not going to be able to play free with confidence. So maybe he needs more game time. I think there is a player there, but you got to cut those out. Otherwise, he could be on his way out if we need to make room for any more foreign players. He could be the one that has to go to make that room.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with what Tim says, but at the same time, I think that giveaway, that pass giveaway, was practically on the halfway line, if I'm honest. But yeah, I don't disagree with what Tim said.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the need as a team to cut down on mistakes, right? Especially at the Premier League level, and that could have been. I mean, that would have been punishing if that were a proper Premier League game. And you make a great point. Is that because the lack of skill, or is it just because of just lack of playing and just situational awareness? I don't know. We'll see. Let's go.
Well, then I also don't think it's a lack of skill, because we know that he is very skillful with the ball at his feet, and that's why we've talked about in the past. We think more as a defensive midfielder would suit him better because he does have skill with the ball at his feet. I think it's just a mental aspect, a lack of confidence, a lack of consistent game time. I think that's what the problem is with him right now.
Well, I think you're right, and I hope you're right. All right, so we're going to go right into quickfire questions. What do you call this, Vass?
Hold on.
What's that called, Vass?
Sam. Hold on.
It's called a what?
Hold on, Sam. You're trying to...
Stick to the rundown, Sam.
What about Højbjerg? Are we not going to talk about Højbjerg at all?
Oh, is he not in here? Let me see. Did I skip something? No, it goes Clark Foyth, then quickfire questions. And
I think at the very beginning, keep going up. That you skipped over right at the beginning. Our brand new signing, Højbjerg's first minutes in a Spurs kit. Nobody mentioned anything about it.
Fuck him. I want to talk about my hair.
Don't give a shit about your hair.
You need a haircut, mate. That's all you need.
I'm doing this for Gaza. We had a question on it too. Chris Moore, FTW, Gaza's hair game. Who's wearing it better, me or Paolo Gazzaniga? No comment.
I'm going Paolo every time.
All right, let's go back to Højbjerg. Where did I miss Højbjerg? What am I supposed to be asking about Højbjerg? Let's talk about Højbjerg. His first minutes. I'll start with you, Vass.
All right, Sam. Let me do your job for you. Sam. JK Knight at JKVT said he was only able to watch what's on YouTube after soccer dad duties, but said lots of nice talk on PEH. How do we think he did? So Sam, there you go. Question for you. How do you think Højbjerg did?
I liked him pointing. Of all the things that he did yesterday, I liked all the pointing around. Like, here, like, going about your business, do this, do that, pass the ball here. I thought, we talked about leadership, right? I thought he showed a little bit of it yesterday. As I watch him,
I will say,
good.
I was just going to say, I'm surprised that he was actually the further forward of the pairing between him and Winks. I thought Hoiberg would be our deep lying, but he was the one that was forward. He's the one who won that ball back off of the error for our second goal.
Yeah.
If we're playing a press, then he's the one who wins the ball back. If you want to win the ball back high, he's your man, really, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think I said on my
there you go, Danny.
off the back of my YouTube scouting that he does like to play high up as well. So when he's pressing, he's going to be there, as Dan quite rightly said.
Yeah, that was good performance. I mean, it was Ipswich, and I don't think you expected to see him do anything really great or really bad. But I do like a bit of this and that, and that's what we saw out of him yesterday. And I think we've said that, Tim, especially, you talked about bringing in somebody to change the mentality, and I thought I saw a little bit of that. So I thought it was constructive, and I want to see him more, and I want to see how he stacks up against really good opposition. So that will come. Tim, direct me. What else? Where am I supposed to go? What have I missed here? What have I missed? I get so excited about my hair, I just lost my way. Anyway, but clearly Paulo Gazzaniga wears it much better than this embarrassing look than I have. All right, so we talked about Cirkin, we talked about Sessegnon, we talked about Clark and Forth. Now we're on quickfire questions. John Zakowski at Facebook. He says, I see most pundits keep saying that we're only going to do it few low-priced or swap deals due to the financial situation. But do you think there's a possibility that we'll use this opportunity to buy low and sell high later? This is what we know our long-term financial picture is good and Levy is smart. Wouldn't surprise me if we did a couple of larger deals if we get a COVID-19 discount. Vass, I'll turn this over to you. I mean, what do you think is going to be our way as we navigate through this transfer window?
Well, I think we've spoken about it before, haven't we? The economic environment and how it's not conducive to high transfer fees. It seems that the only clubs making big splash in the transfer market are those clubs that always would, because of the fact that they got sugar daddies running them or whatever the case may be. Listen, there's a lot of rumour at the moment about maybe moving on Serge Aurier, and if that is true and that happens, then that'll be money available for the club to spend. We might make some loan deals. We might, make some, let's say, lower price deals like we did with Hoiberg, but at the same time, it's going to be an interesting period. And the thing is, we've got to, I haven't got the rundown in front of me, Tim, so whatever. I've lost it.
The problem is,
all right. Well, real quick, let me answer the question. The question is, do we think Levy's going to use this as an opportunity to buy low and sell high later? And I would say in the past, maybe. Right now with Jose Mourinho, no. I don't think Jose Mourinho is going to play any part in that. He's going to say, I don't want that player. Why are you giving me this? It's a waste. Because if he's not going to play him, how are you going to sell him high for later? I just don't think that's a situation right now with our current manager where Levy has as much control and freedom to deal with transfers like he used to. I think we're going to see more involvement by the manager.
Sam,
all right, Sam, take yourself off mute. Let's go.
Fuck's sake. What a shambles tonight, man. Honestly.
It's a perfect intro. And listen to this. While I was, mumbling and you couldn't hear me, I was actually giving Jose a compliment. I actually think that's one of his sort of favorite characteristics, at least in my view, is that I've always sort of been frustrated with the committee and how we select players, blah, blah, blah. But Tim, to your point, I think you're right. I think if there's a player that he doesn't rate or doesn't want, I think he's going to be very, very open about it. And I think he's going to be far more vocal than most managers that we've had before in the past, and hopefully that will serve us well.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see at the end of the window who we buy, because there was always a big, massive discussion about players like Jack Clark last year, about George, Kevin, and Kudu, whatever. These players that were bought in, and you sort of think, what the hell have we bought them for? Even Gedson, for example. And some people would just like, yeah, that's Poch's buy. That's Poch's buy. He wanted this, and then he didn't play him. Other people would say Daniel Levy bought this because of the potential money you can make on them. Blah 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 blah. I think it will be clearly obvious who is buying the players by the time this transfer window ends. Because if we come back with players like the lad from Norwich, like Max Aarons, or someone else that looks like they might make a lot of money in the long term, but Mourinho never plays them, I think you know who's buying the players and who Mourinho would actually want. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
and Dan, I would say, Joe Hart, signing him, I think that's making it obvious who's buying the players. That's not anybody that, well, of course we didn't buy him. It was on a free. That's not anybody that Levy's going to be able to flip a profit on. I think that's clearly a Jose decision.
I think that's more of a football decision, though, because we need the homegrown keeper and we need a space. I mean, I get what you're saying. Yes, for sure. But I mean, I think he's slightly different to, say buying a 19-year-old right back or Brian Sessegnon, for example.
We hold that thought. We'll talk about him. Tim, you got to forgive me because you've avoided bringing this up because you hate the topic. I get it. You know what I'm going to ask you. But we have to ask it, not because we believe that there's really much of an element of truth about it, but it just comes around every year, and so many people talk about it, and it seems like every season somebody tries to make it at least a little bit more legitimate. Is there any possibility of Gareth Bale returning to Spurs? And again, forgive me.
Of course, it's happening. We're winning the league. We're signing Gareth Bale. Luka Modric is coming back. It's happening. I don't think.
Would that excite you in any way?
Fuck yeah, it would excite me. Of course I'd be excited to see that. Right. He's a player that the only one I can remember, in my time of watching Spurs, which hasn't been that long, but the only one that every time he touched the ball, you got excited because you thought greatness could happen. We haven't had that player in a very long time. And so, of course, him coming back, even if it's as an impact sub off the bench or whatever. I mean, I still think he's quality enough to start for us right now. But, of course, I would be thrilled if we were able to make that happen. Do I think it's going to happen? No. But would I be upset if we went and paid his massive wages? Absolutely not, because it's not my money. And if we can make it happen, I'd love to see him in a Spurs shirt. And that's what gets me. Why are people so upset when we go out and spend money on somebody like it's their money that was spent? It's not your fucking money. Why don't you want to see Gareth Bale in a Spurs shirt again?
I don't know. I don't know that it's that great of a stretch, right? I mean, I think at some point he has to ask himself, am I really okay with just running my contract down and sitting on the bench at one of the greatest clubs in the world when I still am probably he's still one of the best players in the world, right? So, all right.
I think the problem with it, Sammy, is exactly what you're saying. He needs to ask himself, because I think it's the personal wages that would be the issue on this.
Yep.
I think if he wants to earn anywhere close to what he's earning at Real Madrid, I think that is the issue with it, not necessarily what it would take to get him, because I think Real Madrid's at the point where they would just want to get him off their books. Yeah. So I don't think the transfer fee would be that big of an issue.
Yeah, they'd give him away for free easily. He'd be a free transfer to whoever wants him. But yeah, he's on 600 grand a week with their tax laws in Spain. I mean, it's never going to happen. The problem is we take him on for 500 grand a week or even 400 grand a week. Say Madrid pay us to take him away from them. As soon as you give him 400 grand a week, Kane knocks on the door, Lloris knocks on the door, and you end up the whole squad's bunching up. It's just not going to happen. Just forget the rumours. Just do yourself a favour and just ignore the word Bale on Twitter.
Yeah.
All right.
Mute it.
Yeah, mute it.
Never. Okay, all right. So we're gonna make a pact. We'll never bring him up again. All right. Forgive me. Okay.
I'd love to see him though.
So we've talked a lot about fixture congestion. Andy, Toronto at Coy's YYZ. The number of matches players are expected to play each year is higher than ever, and this year will be the busiest and most compressed campaign in the history of the Premier League. How much should we limit key player playing time in September, October? and which competitions do we prioritize? Vass.
I don't know if it's a question of prioritising competitions. I think Jose will put as good a team out as he can for all competitions. If you were asking me what would I prioritise, then I'd prioritise the Premier League and the Europa League. They're the two we've got to go for. I know we come back to this whole domestic cup thing again, and about how we dismiss the domestic trophies and we should go for them. I still think Jose will put a team out, but I don't think he'll be prioritising at all.
The interesting thing for me actually is those weeks where we have a Tuesday and Thursday game. Most teams and most clubs, I think, would put out a full strength team for the Europa League on the Tuesday and send the kids on the Thursday. I've got a sneaking suspicion, I could be completely wrong. Tim might like this one. He might split the squads. So you've got a lot of young players, but in both games. So you send Kane on the Tuesday to the Europa League, you send Son on the Thursday for the Carabao Cup, that sort of thing, rather than having one full strength and one nothing. Do you know what I mean? Don't know what your thoughts are on that.
So you're saying kind of two hybrid starting 11s that are kind of equal
half and half
strength, so to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Rather than just a full strength team and then the under 23s, because Jose likes those cups. He likes that League Cup. He always says that's the one that he likes to get in first and try and win and set the standard of the season. So,
well, I mean, I guess
I could certainly see that happening, and I think the key player that you are going to have to limit is Harry Kane, because he is not going to be able to play all 8 games in 21 days. Other positions, we have depth. You have Lucas, Lamela, Lo Celso, Dele, Bergwijn, now Sessegnon. You have a lot of midfield options, so you're not in a situation where you really have to limit key players. You can come out with very strong midfield lineups. It's going to be with striker. Maybe Sonny can't go as a midfielder because he has to play as a striker, because Kane's just not going to be able to play all these matches. So that's where I think I could see what Dan's talking about, those hybrid lineups coming in, where in a match Kane's sitting, but you're also starting, like what you saw against Ipswich, a front three that involves Son, Lucas, and Dele.
Well, you talk about Kane, and I look. I know it's on the rundown. You got to forgive me for jumping, but I think it's a good place to talk about Troy Parrott. Now, look, I mean, this is a bit like the shit we give for Vass, a couple of minutes on YouTube. But my God, did you see the video of him in those finishing drills for Millwall? Any of you guys see that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Man, why are we shipping him out? Why is he on loan?
I saw that, but here,
he just needs
Sammy,
game
here's what
time,
I'm
doesn't
going to
he?
also say. Here's one thing I'm going to say is you saw that drill video. Well, look at a drill video that Jack Clark put out about 2 weeks ago, where he looks really good in drills. And how did he look against Ipswich?
Look, he looked okay, but that was nothing.
He looked okay against Ipswich, but he put out an amazing drill video. And I'm with Vass. He needs to get games, and sure, I'm of the opinion that we should have held him on until the end of the transfer window so that you have him in there for these early qualifying games and then send him out, because they've extended the window until I think it's October 5th. So he could have been available for all of these first 8 games for us, and then we could have sent him off. Same thing with Skip. I'm kind of struggling to see why we're sending them out now when we could have needed them in these first fixtures, and then we could have still sent them out.
Well, the knife cuts both ways, right? I mean, other players or other teams are trying to get players in quickly. So, I mean, I get his excuse. I don't know. I just keep on remembering that preseason game last year, Juve. He looked ready back then. And I know he got injured, and I know that he's had setbacks, but given what our needs are, I don't know. I'd love to see him. And we've got fixtures.
I think it is. I think it's better for us moving forward to send him out on loan. I think he needs his loan move to get game time. I think it's better than coming in 15, 20 minutes at a time, starting one of every 8 games. I think going out and getting a consistent run is going to be better for us long term.
All right, fair enough. Joe Hart, we talked about it. We touched on him. Dan, God, Dan, so good to have you back. I mean, how do we feel about his signing? Was there anything to think about that he actually got on the pitch yesterday before Gazaniga did?
That's the interesting thing with this signing. I think it makes complete sense. I don't think he's on that much money. He saves a space for a homegrown quota, or takes Vorm's place, which gives us an extra slot. It makes complete sense. I think he's a fine number 2. I mean, he used to be a really good goalkeeper. I'm not sure he's going to be able to get to that again. He's never going to de-glove Hugo, for example. But the interesting thing is whether we want him to be the 3rd choice goalkeeper or whether we want him to be the 2nd choice goalkeeper and promote one of the younger kids to add a further space for the homegrown quota. Say one of the young goalkeepers is Alfie. Is it Whiteman? Is that his name? Anyway, if he gets promoted to number 3, we've got 2 extra spaces for foreign players in the squad. And to be honest, Lloris has 1 and Hart has 2 makes total sense to me. I mean, it depends if Gazaniga gets any offers, but I think if we do get a relatively decent offer for him, I can't see him being here at the start of the end of the transfer window, for example.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's been a question raised as to whether Gazaniga will be kept on, but as Dan has just said, it could be a possibility that, that we move him on.
Yeah. Also, I know. Obviously, I don't really like stats at all, but I know obviously the management team will look at stats quite a lot, and Gazaniga's are extremely low. And for as nice looking as he is, I don't think he's actually that good a goalkeeper.
Which stats?
Like his save percentages, his XG stats. Yeah, his hair's great. Yeah, 10 out of 10 for the hair. But some of his
if Gazaniga leaves, you know that if Gazaniga leaves, then Sam's going to have to get a haircut and get rid of that.
No, you know what I'm gonna get the Joe Hart black tattoo band.
That's a shit tattoo.
It's a shit tattoo.
It is a shit tattoo.
You're so uncreative. You go to a tattoo parlor. I don't know what I want. I just fucking paint it black.
Yeah.
I've got a great thing to tell people, right? If you're bored for 5 minutes, just go on Google and search Joe Hart fan fiction romantic. I'll leave you with that.
So, okay.
This has come up before. Hang on, I know something about this, and I can't quite remember what it is.
Oh, dear. He's got a super fan. He's got a super fan who writes sort of fan fiction about her and Joe Hart in hotel rooms in London. I'm saying no more. Okay.
No. All right. Let me Google that. But look,
Joe Hart fan fiction. I think we've just got a title for the podcast.
In all seriousness, I mean, I don't rate Paolo Gazaniga. I don't rate him as a great goalkeeper. I think he's had appearances where we really needed him, and I think he's done reasonably well. But I don't think his future is at Spurs. But I'm not sure that Joe Hart is better than Paolo Gazaniga. I mean, you go look at Joe Hart's last appearances in the Premier League, and he's been hopeless. He's been terrible. So I think
he's not a very good keeper anymore.
No, he's not. He's not. But what he is, he's a great leader. Come on, lads! Get the ball! You know all that shit he does. And, I mean, but he's a leader, and I think it kind of goes back to kind of Timmy's thoughts on Jose needing to sort of recreate the fabric, right, of this team. And I think having him here, coaching young players, staying, showing up early, staying late, those sort of things. I think there's real value there, and you combine that with a Ledley King, you combine that with a Pierre Aurier, and you start adding players, and I think they make a difference. But I still think we have a hole. And look, Hugo's injured every year, right, Tim? Pretty much. So we need a backup goalkeeper. I'm not sure that I rate either of them greatly. Anyway, all right. Tim, I suppose I'll ask you this: Why are we selling Serge Aurier?
Well, because other teams want him, and maybe Jose doesn't rate him. I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily think we're going to regret selling him like we now regret selling Trippier.
But we have to have a trick.
I don't think it's going to be that.
We have to have a transfer trick up our sleeve if we're going to sell a Serge Aurier right before identifying another. We have to have another player identified, surely.
surely there's somebody that they have identified that if we're going to sell Serge, they need funds to go and purchase. I don't think you sell him without knowing what your next move is.
So we've got Milan in for him. I think Leverkusen in for him.
Leverkusen's now in for him, right?
Who's Aurier's biggest fan on the pod? Is it Vass?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I gotta ask
Of course
you.
It's Vass.
I gotta ask you, Vass. Are we gonna sell him? Are we gonna sell him, and how are you gonna be if we sell him?
Listen, if we sell him, I'll be fine. If we sell him, but it still leaves an issue at right back because don't we then need two? I think part of Aurier's problem was that he's not really had any competition in that spot all season. So it kind of still leaves a question mark in that position. I'm all for selling Aurier if we upgrade. If we end up getting somebody like Castagna, for example, or whatever, who's just another Aurier, then, what's the point? You're better off the devil you know. So that would be my only thing. There were rumours today about Klosterman flying around, which I don't know whether that I'll buy into the rumours, but if there was any truth in that, then yes, all day and every day and twice on Sundays, I wouldn't have an issue with that. But it really does depend on who the club have earmarked to bring in, really.
All right,
if Lucas Klosterman happens, go back and listen to our pod in November, the first pod we signed Jose. I mentioned that's the type of right back that he would go after. Lucas Klosterman is the player that I mentioned because he was having a contract situation going on at that time where he wasn't extending his contract. He has since extended his contract, so I don't know why he's now being talked about as an option. But when he had a contract situation going on, I said, this is the type of right back that fits Mourinho's style and that we need to go after.
All right, well, we will see. We will see. I got to give credit to David Ornstein, who really gave us the fodder for that question as it relates to right back and Serge Aurier.
No, Sammy, God, you are horrible with the rundown. You're not giving credit to David Ornstein. He is a beat writer. And I was saying bring up his point. He didn't send us a question.
No, you don't understand.
This is what happens. This is what happens on the podcast.
He's one of the pod's biggest fans.
Sam,
he's one of the pod's biggest fans. He DMs me all the time.
Shut up, Sam. This is what happens when Sam turns up for the pod like a minute before we're about to record, and he hasn't seen the rundown.
All right. Damn it, you know what? We're going to go ahead and no, fuck you. We're asking the irrelevant Potch question that you think I shouldn't talk about because I don't think it's irrelevant. Because you can't, just because you hate him and he's no longer here, you can't deny his existence at Spurs, and you can't say we don't care.
You are in a committed relationship. Stop talking about your ex. You're in a committed relationship. Quit talking about your ex.
Why hasn't he been hired, Tim?
I'm not answering these questions. I love Pochettino when he was here. I don't like that we moved on from him, but I'm not talking about him. He's not relevant to Tottenham right now.
Video. Why hasn't Poch been hired by somebody?
You want me to answer it?
Yeah.
Oh, what?
No, I don't want you to answer it. Move on.
Hang on. No, Dan will answer it. And we got to credit to guys who sent in questions. One was Lee Allen. Shut up, Sam. All right. One was Lee Allen Dean on Facebook, and the other one was Rowan Dukising on Facebook. They both talked about Poch. So go, Dan, answer the question.
Well, I don't really know the answer, to be honest. I don't know how much he wanted the job or whether he was getting binned off or he's asking for too much money, what it is. But maybe I'm a bit of a Poch fanboy. However, I cannot get my head around one of the big clubs not giving him a job. He'll get a job at a big club at some point. Maybe he's thinking, I'll hang around. What's Guardiola saying? There could be a big job in the Premier League coming back up. I know his kid obviously still plays for Spurs. I think if he plays the waiting game and doesn't jump back in too soon and maybe puts the feelers out there, he'll be in a big job by Christmas. I don't think he needs to rush around. I mean, I'm surprised. Who did Juventus go for in the end? Pirlo. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that decision to go with Pirlo was probably already made because it didn't take him long to announce him afterwards. But Pirlo's more of a sort of like a Hart feeling sort of managerial appointment. The same that Barcelona want to get Xavi at some point, don't they? That seems to be the thing now, is to promote one-year-old players because they get the club and everything. And obviously Pochettino didn't in terms of Juventus. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe
it's just not that good.
Maybe not. Maybe it's just rubbish. Yeah, Champions League final loser. That's what he is.
All right. Before I go to match preview, Tim, what have I missed? Have I missed anything else on the rundown? Probably not. So let's go to match preview. We got Reading and Birmingham City. Yeah, right? Well, there's some connections here. Dan with Reading and Vass with Birmingham City. So I'll let you start with the preview for Reading, and I'll have to have Vass to chime in about Birmingham City. Go on, Dan. What about Reading?
Right. So one of my clients who I work with is a client of Reading. That sounds like a really terrible link. However, I've met most of the players, and they are the least caring bunch of not give a fuck about football I've ever met in my life. So if Tottenham don't win about 6-0, I will be absolutely shocked.
Did any of you
They've got
see
one good player? Sorry, they've got one good player, and I've forgotten his name. John Swift. He's their only good player. If we don't win 8-0, I'm going to be really disappointed. And if we lose, even if it's a friendly, I'm going to get absolutely ripped by half of my friends. So please do something good.
Did you guys see on social media today there was some kind of song that Reading produced?
That's old.
It's like is that old? Is it?
That's old. Yeah. That was when the Thai owners came over. It's just about 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, it's just an absolute shocker, isn't it? Yeah, it's embarrassing.
It's terrible. It is so cringeworthy. It's ridiculous.
Oh,
I didn't realise it was old. Yeah. Okay.
Before that's Birmingham City, to me, the greatest, and I want to be respectful when I say this. The greatest thing that I've ever known about Reading's football club is they had, I think, a Ukrainian owner, and his wife is one of the most stunning women I think you're ever going to see, and he paraded her around quite. Whatever. Does he still own the club at all, or is he?
No, I don't think so. It's Chinese owners now, I think.
Money laundering with his hot wife. All right, fair enough.
Exactly, yeah.
Vass, Birmingham City. What do we know about Birmingham City? And will you be there?
No. Well, no. They're both the games are at our stadium, but I won't be there. Nobody will be there. Birmingham, I have a soft spot for. I know they've just appointed a new manager, haven't they? Is it Aitor Karanka? Is it the guy who was at Middlesbrough for a while?
Oh, really?
Anyway, I've got a soft spot for them because they're the only club in the Midlands that I kind of like. I've got a few friends that follow them, so I look out for their results, but that's about as far as it goes. A Blues friend of mine said that we're gonna be racking up the score against them. I don't know if he's just winding me up or what. But listen, friendlies, there's not much to be said in terms of pre-match previews, I don't think.
No, I think you're right. The question I asked Tim, Tim, do you think you see kind of much of what we saw against Ipswich, where you'll have a strong 11 and then it'll just be an absolute hodgepodge in the second half, blooding players, giving him, as many players as you can think of, 15 minutes to show what they can do?
I mean, I'm hoping we see an even stronger 11 out there, because I'm hoping some of these players that weren't able to play the first fixture are now able to play. I'm hoping Tanganga can play if it's an injury situation. I'm hoping to see more of our starters get some games and get ready for the season. But what I'm really hoping to see is more of some of these young players. I want to see Cirkin play. I really want to see Gedson play, because I think these... I'm going with Cirkin, and it's probably wrong, but that's what I'm going with.
Aren't these games 2 days apart as well?
No,
is that right?
One day. I mean, one of them's on Friday and the other one's on Saturday.
So I don't know what he's going to do with the squad.
Yeah, I think he'll just
separate squads.
2 separate squads, I fancy. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, I want to see Gedson. That's the player I want to see, and the reason I want to see him is with what we talked about earlier. Your foreign player numbers. He really needs to show a lot in these early games. Otherwise, why are we going to keep him past the end of the transfer window if he's just going to take up a spot? He needs to, I think, continue with the positive performance he had against Ipswich and continue to build on that if we're going to keep him. Otherwise, if you're not going to play him, not going to make use of him, bring in some other foreign player that is going to add to the team and just end his loan deal early. But I'm not saying end his loan deal early, because I think there's a player in there, and I liked what I saw. I want to see him progress on that. So that's a player I'm most excited or most looking forward to seeing in these upcoming preseason friendlies, and that's why I want to see him, is because of the situation with his loan.
But do we have the option to send him back?
I don't know if we have the option to send him back, but you have the option. You have the option just not to roster him, and they're probably going to take him back if you've chosen not to designate him as one of your foreign players.
I see. Okay. I don't know whether there was anything sort of contractually with the fact that we have to pay his wages. So if you bench him,
I don't think we've loaned him in a way to develop him. I think we've loaned him with a fee, I expect, to actually use his services. So I doubt we probably could even send him back if we wanted to.
That's what I was wondering myself. Well, Dan, while you're at it, I mean, player that you want to see in the next 2 games, or player?
Just same as Tim, really, Tanganga. I'd like to see him. I'm interested to see who does play right back, and whether Aurier does come in just for the time being, or whether Mourinho goes, I know you're going, so what's the point, sort of thing. Interested to see him. Be interested to see Kane again. To be honest, just all of the players coming back who we haven't seen already, basically.
That's you. Anybody top of your list of who you'd like to see play next couple of games?
No, not really. As long as they'll get a run out and Jose settles on some of the squad. Actually, if I had to pick one, probably Sessegnon. I really want that kid to get some confidence, but aside from that, it's all fine by me, whoever he puts out.
We'll wrap up here with, I'll just say, as I was thinking through the question as I asked you, I'm with you. I'd like to see Sessegnon as well. I can't figure out what kind of player he is. If you think about how heralded he was and how influential he was at such a young age in getting Fulham promoted, I was reading accounts throughout the week that, man, every big club under the sun wanted him. And I know that we've all said it at various parts of the season. He looked like Bambi. We've talked a lot today about players who look the part. Man, for as much as he was heralded, as much as he was recruited and scouted by so many big clubs, I can't figure him out. He just has never really looked comfortable and confident. Maybe it's because he was carrying an injury when he came in. I don't know. Maybe it was because Pochettino was gone. That's who brought him in. Maybe because the new manager doesn't know. So I'm with you, Vass. I'd like to see him more. I sense there's a player there, but I sense there's a completely different player than what we've seen. And maybe, to sort of Tim's point, is the only way, kind of like Foyth, the only way that you really get to see it is he's got to play his way out of it. So, all right. Rant over. I promise you I won't have this ridiculous looking Barnet next week. Shouts, close. Tim, you have the best haircut.
Yeah, I just want
Tottenham pod. You know that, don't you? I know. It's really nice. You didn't wear a hat today. We lose sight, right, of how amazing.
No, because I went to the barber on Friday, so why am I going to cover that up? I'll wear a hat next weekend, but this is the fresh cut. You got to show it off.
Barber, hairdresser.
Yeah.
I used to go to a hairdresser. Now I go to a barber. You see these lines now? You're not getting that from a hairdresser. That's a straight blade razor cut on that hard part right there.
It's quite cool because Tim's very Gareth Bale 2011, and Sam is Gareth Bale 2020 with the haircut. Mate.
So I'm the better one. I'm the one playing.
You're the one at Tottenham with no trophies. Sam's the one in Real Madrid with about 18.
Yeah, he's just the one sitting on the bench.
I'm only 50 years old and I'm looking like an idiot. That's hilarious. All right. Dan, can we talk about in your life? Can we talk about your news in your life before we leave off?
So I'm transferring from Dr. Tottenham to Dr. Bilbao. And I'm going to do a scout on all the Basque Country's finest young players and send them into Daniel Levy for next season. So don't worry about it. We're going to have loads of good players next year. Loads of Basque-speaking players. But yeah, no, I'm moving to Spain. So
amazing. Well, We're excited for you. We wish you all the best. So this is really the real reason why we changed the podcast name, right? Because we're truly global.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Spain,
England, America.
2 matches to review. Hopefully, who knows? Maybe have a transfer to discuss or some more rumors to expound upon. But I hope you guys have an amazing week. Spurs scores 20 goals. And we come back and have a lovely discussion next week. So come on, you Spurs.